Aaron Boone would probably put it best as a gut punch. Welcome back to the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, everyone. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Also, share this out. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. All the good stuff. So, I originally predicted this game to be somewhat of a blowout for the Giants. And there's definitely good to take away from this, but there's also bad because, well, guess what? This game ended up in a loss. And it's kind of the same story as we've been saying the last few weeks regarding a certain side of the ball. But also there was a outside factor, I think, that also affected this. And there's also a certain side of the ball that played really well and above expectations, at least from my part. So, we're going to obviously do the stat breakdown, offense, defense, snap counts, stuff like that, and then we'll get you guys out of here. I don't think it'll be too long of a show, but again, we'll see where we go with this. But again, like, comment, subscribe to all the good stuff, turn on post notifications so you know when live stream pops or drops. So, Tyrod Taylor got the start, and we'll get into a full breakdown once again when we go on the offense. But stats-wise, 24-36, 200 yards, 3 sacks taken. Josh Allen, 19-30, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. No sacks taken. Giants rushing game, 132 yards on the ground, which isn't terrible, but also Saquon Barkley had 24 carries for 93 yards. That's 3.9 yards per carry, which isn't that good. I'll get into him once again when we go to the offense. James Cook, 14 carries, 71 yards, 5.1 yards per pop. The receiving game, Darius Slayton, 4 catches, 69 yards, 8 catches, 62 yards for Wan'Dale Robinson, and then Darren Waller, 5 catches, 43 yards. Jalen Hyatt also got in on the action, 3 catches, 21 yards. Buffalo receiving game, Stephon Diggs, 10 catches, 100 yards. Gabe Davis, 3 catches, 21 yards. Dawson Knox, 3 catches, 17 yards. Quinton Morris had a touchdown, and so did Deontay Hardy. Fumbles and turnovers overall. So, Bobby Okereke knocked out the ball from the hands of Gabe Davis, recovered by Micah McFadden, and then Micah McFadden also had an interception as well that went back for about 5 yards. Take a look at the defense, the lead tackler. Lead tacklers, surprisingly, actually not surprisingly, are Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. Okereke had 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, and 11 tackles. Micah McFadden, 7 total tackles, a pass deflection, a quarterback hit. And the Giants totaled 1 quarterback hit, 2 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. Now, you could take the positive route and say they had 16 pressures, but you could also take the negative route and say they didn't get a single hit other than Micah McFadden on the quarterback, which, when your edge is Kayvon Thibodeau and you do want to get hits on the quarterback from Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, you do expect a little bit more. And I get it. This is a standard NFL offensive line. They're a little bit above the average level, but I would like a little bit more. Again, defense, I thought they did their part in the game, but we'll get into that fully. Defensive side of the ball for Buffalo, lead tackler was Taron Johnson. They actually had 3 guys who had over 10-plus tackles. Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard, who's had to step up since the injury to Matt Milano, and then Taron Johnson, as mentioned. Terrell Bernard had 3 tackles for loss. Christian Benford had a tackle for loss. 2 tackles for loss for Greg Rousseau, 1 for Epineza and Leonard Floyd, and then also Shaq Lawson. They totaled 3 sacks coming from Floyd, Epineza, and someone else. For some reason, ESPN's not listing it. And quarterback hits, they had 5. 2 quarterback hits by Floyd, 1 by Epineza, 1 by Rousseau, 1 by Dorian Williams, and I think I might be forgetting somebody. Yeah, I said Williams. I said Rousseau. Yeah, that's pretty much that. So 5 quarterback hits, which again isn't bad considering the circumstances for the offensive line. Now you move into team stats. First downs, Giants 20, 22 for the Bills. Giants had 11 passing first downs, 12 for the Bills. 5 rushing first downs for the Giants, 7 for the Bills. Giants had 4 first downs from penalties, 3 for the Bills. Giants were 10 for 19 on third down. That's a lot of third down attempts. So, 6 of 12 on third down. The Bills were. Giants were 1 for 2 on fourth, and the Bills were 0 for 0 because they didn't have to attempt fourth down. Giants had 73 plays, 59 for the Bills. Total yards, 317 for the Giants, 297 for the Bills. You take a look at the red zone attempts. Giants were 0 for 5 in the red zone. Oy. And Buffalo Bills were 2 for 2. That pretty much says it. I mean, they punched it in twice, and the Giants couldn't punch in it at all. And that's not even talking about field goals. That's talking about straight-up touchdowns. So there's that. 9 penalties for 65 yards for the Giants, 7 penalties for 51 yards for the Bills. They also had 2 turnovers, and the time possession, 31-24 for the Giants, 28-36 for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to get into the smaller takeaways, and then I'm going to get into the bigger takeaway and a little bit more. So I want to start out by giving a shout out, and again, the offense didn't look great, so there's no reason to hey, put up the pom-poms. No, we're not doing that. But I do want to give a shout out to this guy who came in on short notice, and he played his tail off. That doesn't mean he played well, but he played his tail off, and he's really starting to grow on me. That's Justin Pugh. Now, of course, some of you remember, Justin Pugh was drafted by the Reese regime. He was not re-signed under Gettleman, and he was brought back because of injuries. And he worked out with the Giants in Arizona. A few weeks later, got signed to the practice squad, and he started at left guard to start the game and then move over to left tackle when Josh Azudu got hurt. And I must say, for the limited snaps he was playing at left guard, he played really well. He played really well. Running game, passing game, stuff like that. Obviously, PFF and some of these other metrics will say that he was bad. And, of course, as a tackle, he played bad. I'm not going to sit here and, walk around it because, yeah, you played against Leonard Floyd and A.J. Epineza. But I think there was a stat out there. I think Lawrence Tynes or somebody else put it out that Justin Pugh has the lowest pressure percentage allowed by a Giants left tackle this year, which includes Matt Peart, which also includes Josh Azudu, of course. Now, am I going to sit here and say Justin Pugh should start at left tackle moving forward? No, because if Azudu's okay, you play him. My personal opinion. Or you play Matt Peart at left tackle, my personal opinion. But also, if they feel comfortable with Pugh, I'm not going to be mad about it because at least he'll know the cadences, he'll know when the ball is snapped, and he'll get a better angle on some of these pass rushers. It's not going to be easy next week going against the Commanders. But him coming in here, I just admire him. I really do because, again, there was something a couple of years ago that he may have talked trash on the Giants or whatnot, but then he came back and said he wants to play for the Giants. Like he went on Pat Leonard's podcast and said, I want to finish my career in New York. I want to do that, right? And he comes in, and when Evan Neal makes those stupid comments, he immediately says, Evan shouldn't have said that, and was very much a leader in that area when the Giants didn't have one. Saquon was still out, and Justin Pugh acted like a leader in that situation. And I don't think there's any real leaders in the O-line room. Maybe Andrew Thomas, but he seems like a silent leader. Doesn't say a ton of things. But also, Justin Pugh even admitted on his own podcast that he was humbled. He was humbled by the amount of practice squad offers he got and not real NFL 53-man roster offers. So, again, in my personal opinion, you guys could call this an overreaction, but I don't think it will be. The Giants need to sign Justin Pugh to the active roster immediately, and they need to start him for the rest of the entire season because it's interesting that a guy off of an ACL injury looks better than, I would say, most of the starters out there. Now, you'd have to do some maneuvering because Bredesen is not good as a center. He's good as a guard, so maybe you shift Bredesen over to right guard or you shift Pugh over to right guard, whatever the case may be. But also Pugh as a right guard, though the Giants fans haven't really seen him there. He's been more of a left guard in his career. Maybe that veteran leadership will help out Evan Neal on the other side. And then when Andrew Thomas comes back, maybe Bredesen on the left side. There's a lot of things you can experiment with. But as far as that goes, I'm not going to say it's like, oh my God, when the Giants O-line comes back with Schmitz and Andrew Thomas, it's going to be a top 10 unit. No, but I think there's also positives when they do come back because you have seen, Bredesen's at least a solid guard. Evan Neal is the weak link. Justin Pugh, he played solid at guard. So there's that. And then Schmitz, again, with Justin Pugh next to him, I think that's a veteran there. And then Andrew Thomas factoring in as well. So, is it too late? I think it would be, but at least it gives Evan Neal confidence maybe going into next year, and then Schmidt's going into his second year, so it helps out a little bit. But if you want to look at like the pressures for the Giants, they allowed 14 pressures on the offensive line. Marcus McKee then had 3. Evan Neal had 3. Justin Pugh had 3 and 2 sacks, and the rest were by the rest of the O-line. So there's that. A little bit better play from the O-line, but also as well, if you look at the metrics, they don't look that good. But I'll talk about more of that when we go to the quarterback situation. We move to the receiver situation, so we're kind of moving backwards a little bit. Jalen Hyatt more involved. Darren Waller getting more involved. I mean, Waller was more involved in Miami, period. But Jalen Hyatt getting involved. I mean, he made an outstanding catch along the sideline. It was unfortunately not enabled, but it was kind of shoot away by a penalty, which you could argue whether it was a legal man downfield or wasn't a legal man downfield. And that spectacular catch over the middle on 4th and 5, or what was it, 4th and 9. The Giants needed that to move the chains. And Jalen Hyatt, that was just a circus catch. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Get this kid involved. Have him as a deep threat. He has hands. Obviously, there's some route running issues, according to like the scouts and stuff like that. But, I mean, Brian Daboll said this in the presser, and he's right, but you need to have strength in your convictions to actually go upon what you say. And he said the only way we're developing Wan'Dale and Jalen is to play them, and they need to play more. And Wan'Dale has been really good, I must say. Like, he's not, oh my God, he's going to get like 11 yards per catch. It seems like it's that at this point, but he's kind of like Richie James from last year, just better, and he doesn't really drop the ball too much. Obviously, he's a stick, but hey, he's been reliable for Daniel Jones. He's been reliable for Tyrod Taylor. And if any other quarterback comes in, hopefully that's not the case. So we move back a little bit more. Saquon Barkley looked rusty in the first part of the game. You saw the cuts weren't good. Some like up the middle runs were good. But obviously that's not too much of Barkley's style, depending on, where you place him and stuff like that. But the last 2 drives proved that his rehab a little bit faster than some of the other years, because you saw in 2019 he wasn't back to himself. You saw in 2021 he wasn't back to himself after the ankle sprain. This is his 3rd time with the high ankle sprain. And, how the Giants handled that, talk about it in another conversation, maybe. But those last 2 drives where the Giants straight up ran traps, 14-yard gain and then 39-yard gain. 2 straight plays, that's like 53, 55 yards right there. That's what put the Giants' offense into the red zone and had them take the lead at 9-7. And I think against Washington, apparently the stats are out there that they're not good against the run. Of course, when I do my research and I do my preview, we're going to look into that. But if Tyrod Taylor is still starting, and even if Daniel Jones is starting as well, I mean, with not a fully functional O-line, that's the route you got to go, is just run the football, time of possession, play action when you can, open up the pass. So I want to talk about this. The Giants haven't scored an offensive touchdown in 12 to 13 quarters. That's obviously not good, right? They haven't had a first half touchdown all year. And it goes down to the lack of execution again, because it's no matter who's the quarterback, there's a penalty that, a false start or a holding, and it moves them back, and they can't get out of those situations. The Giants have to be one of the most bad 3rd down teams. That's a terrible phrase to describe it, but the Giants have to be one of the worst 3rd down teams in the NFL. Compared to last year where they were making some solid conversions, this year it's nothing like that. So let's go with the sequence of events. You have the first half, the end of the first half, which everybody knows what I'm talking about here. You have a point in which it's 13 seconds to go. They run it up the gut with no timeouts, and Tyrod Taylor audible to a run play. Tyrod, I get it. You saw what you saw in the middle of the teeth of the defense or whatever you did to audible to a run. But 13 seconds is not enough time. If you had 20 seconds, sure. But 13 seconds and they stuff you. I mean, I just don't know how that's smart. I would have rather been an open hole up the middle and people be called out it afterwards, but the Giants get 3 on that drive and Tyrod just chucks it away and, the Giants kick 3. So they got no points out of that. And sports radio is hilarious. It really is, because you have people like Maggie Gray and some of these other folks coming out here, and saying, oh, Tyrod Taylor should not be berated in front of the camera like that by Brian Daboll. Well, I mean, he did that to Daniel Jones. Why wouldn't it be right for Tyrod Taylor to get some berating? And this is not a Daniel Jones Tyrod Taylor debate. It's just, are we that soft now? Oh, you can't console him in the locker room. It's like, dude, who cares? Like, you're gonna see that shit on the sidelines. It's not just gonna be all behind closed doors. You're gonna see that shit on the sidelines. If Tyrod made a bad decision, Brian Daboll has the right to yell at him. Regardless of what we think of Daboll's coaching decisions, the same thing is, with Daniel Jones. You have a right to hone your players in. And this is where I blame Brian Daboll. Now, I thought there was some very suspicious play calls and also lack of execution on certain plays. The T formation play they like to run from Penn State, that didn't work on, the first to the second drive. They had 3rd and 1. And the Giants' lack of execution on that play killed it. It absolutely killed it. And they were pretty successful with that most of this year. I think they ran it 2 or 3 times. But again, the lack of execution, you could argue a bad play call. I didn't like the Giants running it to the left side on like a couple first and second downs, because it's not just all running on first down or running on second down. No. That's not the situation. You have Justin Pugh and Glowinski on the left side who've never played together, let alone in practice. I mean, yeah, maybe Pugh played alongside Glowinski at right guard and right tackle in practice, but that's the left side now we're talking about. So I don't think that was smart. Like, maybe McKeithen's not great. Maybe Bredesen's not great in that area. You saw that trap run where Evan Neal's doing his thing. McKeithen's doing his thing. Bredesen's doing his thing. That's what they should have done maybe earlier in the game. Now, of course, they would have figured it out a little bit sooner, but at least, like, you run to that right side, it's just terrible execution, not just the stupidity of play calling. But going back to the Daboll thing, I called this out on Twitter, and besides the thing in the first half, this is what changed the complexion of the game. The Giants motorboat down the field, a couple of conversions, whatnot. Obviously, those 2 Saquon Barkley runs. And again, I'm going to kill Brian Daboll for this. Not literally kill him, but I'm going to criticize him. 4th and inches in the red zone. Your team is 1-4. About to go 1-5. What is it bad if you run Saquon again, or you convert, or you try for 4th down? It's not 4th and 5. It's 4th down and inches. You may or may not trust your defense because Buffalo likes to get in a groove. And obviously they gave up the touchdown. That's fine. The defense gave up 2 touchdowns. Who gives 2 shits? Like, this is a top offense in the league. And I'm not making moral victories here, but I'm just saying, like, in that situation, why did he go for 4th and inches? Like, I don't know if any beat reporter asked him that. Why would you not go for 4th and inches, when your team has struggled putting it in the end zone all entire season? So maybe you run Saquon up the middle. Maybe you do a tush push. Maybe you do something. That's where the coaching staff has to get better. And that's why I said on Twitter, Brian Daboll in that situation was Robert Saleh, because that in the first half miscue, in my opinion, are the reason that the Giants didn't win this game. Of course, lack of execution on offense on a couple other different plays, but those 2 plays shaped the friggin' game. And I don't want to hear from Giant fans or meme pages, and it's all funny and well that we get these, get the notice. But you could sit here and say, well, Darren Waller was held in the end zone, pass interference. Okay. First play, he definitely was. Second play, okay, maybe he was. Number 1, they're not throwing the flag twice. Because whether you're in the Giants stadium, you're in the Bills stadium, whatever the case may be, they're not throwing the flag twice, because then it comes down to the refs decided this game, not the Giants or the Bills. So they let the players decide the game. Again, you could say, pass interference on Taron Johnson, whatever. And maybe Tyrod could have placed that ball a little bit better, and Darren Waller took accountability, and I like that. But here's the thing, though. You wouldn't be in that position if you decided to go for it on 4th and inches, and if you kicked the field goal at the end of the first half. You wouldn't be in these type of situations. And the truth is, you don't need the refs to win you a game if you're a good team. And Chris Collinsworth, I believe, said it. You could always point back to Washington last year when the Giants had that PI almost call on them and they didn't, and the refs let it happen. So, again, like, I get it. The refs are terrible. They were terrible in this game, both sides. Hey, I mean, I can't really, the Giants are not a good football team. It comes down to that. It's the truth. Comes down to it, the Giants are not a good football team. So, we move to the defense. But first, let's get into our sponsor. That's SeatGeek, folks. If you guys haven't already, use the code, please. $20 off, Big Blue in the Bronx. That's your promo code. It works for concert tickets, so if you're a big Swiftie or you're going to see Beyonce, you're going to see somebody, okay? If you're going to a concert, if you need parking passes for MetLife Stadium or any other stadium, they work. Trust me. Parking passes are fucking expensive. Get $20 off, it's a breeze. And then also game tickets as well. Fees are a pain in the fucking ass. But guess what? You know what helps? The promo code, Big Blue in the Bronx, gets $20 off. So, I'm going to point out 2 negatives on the defense before going to all of the positives that we saw. The run defense a little bit was shredded by James Cook. He had explosive burst. His longest was a 14-yard run, but 14 carries, 71 yards, 5.1 yards per pop. That needs to get better, considering the fact that the next 2 weeks, I don't know how Washington does against the run, but the Jets rely heavily on Breece Hall, so that needs to get cleaned up. And then no sacks, 1 quarterback hit by Micah McFadden. I would like the Giants to get there more. Like, I get it, the pressures were there. They had 18 pressures. That's great. Thibodeau had 6 pressures. But, again, the Giants need to get to the passer. And pressures are great. Again, it showed up in this game, so you can nitpick like I am this time around. But they need to hit the quarterback a little bit more. At least hit him, Make an off-balance throw. Because sometimes pressures are pressures, and Josh Allen rolls out of the pocket. He finds Stephon Diggs downfield. That counts as a pressure, but it doesn't count as, oh my God, they stopped him. No, it counts as a first down. But let's get into the real positives. I want to shout out 2 guys that really have struggled to begin the year, and then they're trying to find their footing, and they have, at least as of right now. Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. How many questions, Giant fans, did we have coming into this year about the linebacking core or any linebacker next to Bobby Okereke? We had legitimate questions. Don't second-guess yourself. We had legitimate questions. Week 1, you were in a weird situation. Week 2, they played horribly. Week 3, Micah McFadden played well, but Okereke didn't. Week 4, mixture. Week 5, Okereke gets a couple pass tips and an interception. Week 6, here we are. Micah McFadden and Okereke played their tails off, making tackles left and right. Okereke had a tip that was a Micah McFadden interception. Okereke took away the middle part of the field. Now, of course, again, a lot of off-script plays for the Buffalo Bills, so that's more towards the sideline. But he took away the middle of the field. There was a play that was Deonte Banks on Stephon Diggs, tipped away by Bobby Okereke. And Micah McFadden, again, doing his thing in the running game. So, shout-outs to whoever the inside linebacker coach is. Shout-outs to those 2 guys, really. And, we'll get to the snap counts as far as how much Isaiah Simmons played. But Micah McFadden, if you're going to sit here and look negatively, and you can, on last year's draft class, the positive you have to take out of it is Micah McFadden being a contributor on this defense. And Bobby Okereke, he seems to be getting into the curve. He's getting into a groove a little bit. And we're going to need that, again, because the Raiders run it a lot. That's the week after the Jets. Let's see what else we got. We got the Commanders at some point there. We got the Cowboys again. So, we're going to need big linebacker play like we had in this game. And they played an excellent game. They played a very big part in why the Giants just held them to 14. Obviously 2 missed field goals, but again. So, again, 18 pressures. D only had 5 missed tackles. That's good. That's actually very good because the Giants have been terrible with missed tackles across the NFL. And, Xavier McKinney, I thought, played well. I thought Jason Pinnock played well. I thought some of these other guys played well. The defense played well overall. I can't really say that this guy had a bad game. I would like Kayvon Thibodeau to set the edge a little bit more because there was some of these plays where they would crash down and then James Cook would just whirlwind around. And that can't happen. I feel like we're having this issue a little bit again, and maybe it's just a matter of fronts on the offensive side of the football where they're a good O-line or something like that. I don't really want to take it down to that. But Nunez Roches and Jordan Riley were getting pummeled in the middle. And sometimes you would see Dex double teamed or Leo being taken off the ball in the running game. So that needs to improve. I'm not saying that the Giants' run defense was great. I'm not saying they were good. I'm not saying they were terrible. But there are some, miscues you need to really really fix up. And also, I want to know how many pressures Dexter Lawrence had because he was being double teamed. He was being held, and I thought they missed a couple of calls in terms of, him being held, which again is, ref ball. It's finest, but it's not like the Giants lost the game because of ref ball. Once you blame the refs, you already lost the game. You lost the locker room. You're making excuses. But as far as that goes, man, I mean, Dexter Lawrence was causing havoc. I want him to get his first sack. It's 6 weeks. He doesn't have a sack. I want him to get his first sack in the next few weeks. I really do, because he needs to get on the stat sheet a little bit more. There's 2 more things I want to point out. And while I'm on the defensive line, I might as well point this out. Usually I would critique the defense fighting other players if they were like losing badly, or if it's a situation they're just not playing well, they're getting bullied, and they were getting bullied a little in the running game. But I'll take it to this, right? I'll take it to this. The defense had fight, and they had grit, and they weren't losing badly. They were playing a very efficient game. And it's just like, I kind of get where Jet fans, no offense Bills fans, even though it is offense, I kind of get where Jets fans are coming from. It's like the Bills are a dirty team. It's like Deion Dawkins was pulling on the leg of Kayvon Thibodeau. And Kayvon Thibodeau was like trying to kick him like a baby sitting down. And then on the other side, you have Spencer Brown and Dexter Lawrence going at it. Leonard Williams comes in to defend his teammate and pushes Spencer Brown. That's automatically a flag. And then you have Bobby Okereke getting into it, and then Josh Allen going in his face. So there's that. I mean, Josh Allen obviously came and hugged Brian Daboll after the game. But I would have liked this win a little bit more because of that. And also, Sean McDermott and Brian Daboll, newsflash everybody, they don't like each other. I don't know what it is. They don't like each other. I don't know why. Maybe it's some coaching disagreements while he was in Buffalo or whatnot. But as far as that goes, they just did a little, like, pat on each other's backs and then moved along. And then he gave Josh Allen a hug, meaning Brian Daboll. So there's that. And also, I want to point this guy out and just go to the secondary real quick. Deonte Banks had 3 attempts on him, 1 penalty, no completions. Cordell Flott had 5 completions allowed on 7 targets, a touchdown, and then Adoree Jackson 4 completions, 4 targets, and also had the neck injury, so he was out a little bit. I mean, Flott, I'd have to watch a little bit more of his play. I think he's the slot corner from now on. I know he struggled a little bit, but again, just, moving forward, I think Flott should be the slot. He likes the slot. He said it in a presser. But Deonte Banks needs to get his flowers, and I think he needs to start getting recognition. Guaranteed, sometimes he's not on the best receiver, but he locked down Diggs a little bit when he was on him. Some of the times that he was on Jalen Waddle last week, he wasn't getting anything, even though they were attacking Tyreek Hill. Deonte Banks, 25th overall pick. The Giants can feel a little bit more confident going into next year, knowing that Banks can cover some good wide receivers. And of course, you draft him 25th overall to be that corner 2 or corner 1. Maybe they trade Adoree Jackson at the deadline. May happen, may not happen. We'll see what they do and whatnot. But you feel a little bit better because Banks is actually a corner that seems to be working out this far. So that's what I have on the defense. Let's go into the snap counts. Okereke, Banks, McKinney, and Pinnock, all 100%. 92% for Tibbs, 90% for Leonard Williams, 80% for Dexter Lawrence, 79% for McFadden and Adoree Jackson, 67% for Jihad Ward, 66% for Cordell Flott. The Giants got to call up another edge because Jihad Ward cannot rush the passer. Probably goes to maybe Tamon Fox or Oshane Ximines. 66% for Flott. Raheem Nunez-Roches, 31%. 23% for Dane Belton. 18% for Isaiah Simmons and Trey Hawkins. 15% for Carlos Boogie Basham and Darnay Holmes. Jordan Riley, 11%. 10% for Ashawn Robinson. 3% for McLeod and Carter Coughlin. I'm surprised he got some play. But then again, he is a linebacker inside and also edge. You look at the offensive snaps, 77 is like the 100% of the snaps. Glowinski, Evan Neal, Justin Pugh, and Ben Bredesen. Tyrod Taylor, 2. 92% for Darren Waller. 88% for Marcus McKeithen. 87% for Slayton. 78% for Barkley. 73% for Jalen Hyatt. 60% for Wan'Dale Robinson. 53% for Daniel Bellinger. 23% for Hodgins and Breida, as Hodgins is getting phased out a little bit. Josh Azudu, 12%. 1% for Jalen Mayfield, Sterling Shepard, and Eric Gray. Lawrence Cager at 6%. Also worth noting that Paris Campbell did not see any snaps, and He hasn't been good in a Giants uniform. I can't say very underwhelming. He's just been underwhelming. So what can I take out of this game and moving forward for us Giant fans? So obviously we're 1-5. It looks as though the season is over, and I've kind of been saying it since the Seattle game. If you want to believe that the Giants can maybe make a run and win some games, go ahead. And listen, I have not fully embraced the tank yet. If they lose, obviously, for people, it's a win for draft picks. If they win, it's, some of this young core coming together and moves into next year maybe. I know that's very rare because you see a lot with these coaches. They win the back end of last year or the prior year, and then the following year they're garbage. But obviously, Daboll's coaching for wins. Shane's GMing for wins and trying to get the best guys in here as possible. And I think the Giants will cook up some wins down the stretch once they get guys back. Whether it's Daniel Jones or not, it's a telling sign that they did bring in Ian Book and Matt Barkley for QB workouts, which is not a good thing because, Jones is still feeling pain on the left side of his neck. So, he's going to be out for a little bit. Maybe the entire season. But I think the Giants could cook up some wins against some certain teams. I think the Jets is winnable. Not saying that because of the rivalry. I think the Pats game is winnable. I think the Raiders game is winnable. I think the Packers game can be trappish for the Packers. But I'm just pointing it out there. I'm just pointing it out that definitely that the Giants can master up some wins. Now, of course, it wouldn't do well for the draft picks if you're a tank guy. But hey. But as you start to see guys get back, the defense played well. This offense has to get going. I don't know what it is that maybe Washington struggles with against the pass or against the run. I know Emmanuel Forbes was out last game. But Saquon Barkley, going to need him in a lot of ways. Going to need Eric Gray in ways. Matt Breida too. And Slayton, he had some good plays, some bad plays against Buffalo. Wan'Dale Robinson's been a big target for our quarterbacks. Darren Waller, too, and Jalen Hyatt. Again, I'd like to see him a little bit more as a deep threat and take the top off of the defense. And, I'm glad that Tyrod Taylor has taken some risks, right? Obviously people were complaining about his miss in the flat to Wan'Dale Robinson, but he took a risk throwing downfield. And you know what? I'd rather have that because that's like a punt rather than just a short yardage interception that's, not much worth of anything. But like, comment, subscribe, folks. Do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when the live stream pops or drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Share this out. Use the SeatGeek code. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. We'll be back tonight on the YouTube channel with the Phillies D-backs game. Thursday Night Football. And more from there. Appreciate you guys. Let's get to 1.6K on YouTube. Share it with your friends. Do all the good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Peace.